You're listening to Catholic Family Podcast, Episode 5.
You're listening to the Catholic Family Podcast. I'm Kevin Davis. In this week's episode, I'm joined by my sister, Michelle Landsgaard, better known as Chicky Landsgaard. I don't think I'm the only one who calls you Chicky, right? You're still called Chicky by others.
Yeah, no, I definitely still get Chicky. Mostly Father Borja, actually, who was on one of your other podcasts, still calls me Chicky. And there's some Denver people, Dominic definitely. So yeah, it's lived on, which is awesome.
Well, I guess most of your time is spent with your 4 kids, so I assume they're not calling you Chicky. So I guess your biggest the people you spend the most time with are mostly calling you a mom or wifey dear.
Yep. Yeah, no, I don't really hear Michelle very often. It's usually mommy or that's I definitely get that name called to me like over 100 times a day. So that's always fun, but it's probably my favorite name. Well, Chicky's a close second, but it's a good one.
That's good. Well, and I guess that's our topic for the day is really pretty much young motherhood. I mean, I think that's a very general term, I guess, but I think that's what we want to talk about. And you have 4 young kids and just kind of how you not only survive, but make it at least seem fun. I don't know if it actually is fun, but you make it seem fun. I was just talking to one of our mutual friends last night, and we were talking about kids, and I mentioned you with your 4 young kids, and she's like, yeah, I don't know how she does it. And every time I see her, she's still smiling. So I think that's what we want today, Chicky. We want to get your advice on how do you have 4 young kids and you're still smiling. But first, I want you to just tell me kind of what's your story. When did you get married? And from then on, how did you find your young man first?
Well, it was actually at Magic Mountain in California. So yeah, our mutual friends from Omaha took like a trip and I met him there and he was wearing a Colorado Rockies baseball cap.
Good man.
And I just thought that was awesome because obviously I like the Rockies. And he just made an impression on me, and he was dating someone at the time, but I kind of stalked him a little bit, and like probably a year after I met him at Magic Mountain, I started texting him because I heard he was single, and we started texting, and then we actually made a visit to California, and we, spent time together, and it all kind of went uphill from there, or downhill, I guess. But yeah, it was close to love at first sight for me. I don't know if I would say that for him, but yeah, I definitely fell pretty hard. And it helped that we came from really similar backgrounds. He is from a family of 12, and his family also homeschooled. They are Catholic, hard workers, and that really helped a lot because I feel like we had the same background, the same views on like pretty much all the important stuff. So yeah, it wasn't hard to connect, that's for sure.
And you made the first move.
Yep, I definitely made the first move. Yep, I pretty non-ashamedly, I kind of stalked him. So, but it all worked out. We are married and happy. So yeah, that he said I love you first, and he kissed me first. So there is that. But yeah, I definitely made the first move. So.
And so when did you guys get married?
We got married in 2015, so a little over 5 years ago.
And how old were you?
I was 19, so I was almost 20, but like about 2 weeks away from my 20th birthday. And Ben was 21. So yeah, definitely pretty young, but it was good. I couldn't drink at my wedding, but they let me have champagne and stuff, so that was good.
Well, that was nice of them. And so then how soon after your wedding in 2015 did you have your first daughter?
So Daria was born in April, so it was less than a year after we had gotten married. We knew pretty much right off that we wanted kids, so it wasn't like too much of a surprise when Daria was born. But yeah, we pretty much went straight into parenthood. We didn't have too much time as a married couple. Actually, on our honeymoon, we went to the Bahamas on a cruise, and I was like 7 months pregnant. So yeah, it was still a blast, but definitely different than, what society does most of the time these days.
Wow, 7 months pregnant and on a cruise. I assumed you were not seasick.
Well, I definitely had periods of seasickness. It wasn't like terrible, but yeah, every now and then I definitely got pretty nauseous. We had to skip out. We were going to do like this 80s disco party, and I was like about to throw up, so we had to miss that. But otherwise, it was fantastic. So,
well, and see, that's again, that's part of the attitude that we want to talk about in this podcast, and that you got married very young, you had babies very young, you're still very young, you got 4 young kids, but you guys don't let it get you down. You still go on cruises when you're 7 months pregnant, and I think now you don't let life, or you don't let 4 kids get you down. And so after Daria, you have Irish twins? Almost, not quite, but close.
Really
right?
close. Yep. Yeah. It was so Ella was born on May 4th. So Daria was April 27th. So they were about a week away from being Irish twins, which definitely also came as a little bit of we weren't like shocked or anything, but with Ella, I was like, wow, that was pretty quick. And Daria actually wasn't even walking when Ella was born, so she started pretty soon after. But yeah, for a while I was literally carrying 2 babies, so that was interesting. They definitely kept me on my toes, that's for sure. But
well, literally, right? And I bet you got some nice mom muscles too in your arms.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I would take down almost anyone in an arm wrestle, I think.
I believe it. Okay, so when was the third?
So Claudia was August of the next year. So she was about 18 months after Ella. So again, I had 3 kids under 3 for a while. And then Quinn was the most spread out. He was close to 2 years. So Claudia is 2 right now, and Quinn is 7 months. So they're a little closer to 2 years. But yeah, I have 4 kids under 4. So Daria is 4, but they're all pretty close.
And how old are you now?
I'm 25 and Ben is 27. So yeah, it's definitely, not what most 25-year-olds kind of see with their life, but I definitely have no regrets. I mean, I cannot imagine my life without my kids, and they're really close together, but at the same time, like it's so much fun, and I love them to death on almost every day. No, I'm just kidding. Right. I love them all the time, but it's good.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say it's always an adventure, but it's always fun. So.
And was there ever a point where you thought, wow, this is kind of crazy?
Yes, definitely. I think my low point as a mother and probably as a person came it was 2 years ago. It was pretty shortly after Claudia was born. We moved from California to Nebraska, and we had never really experienced a winter with the kids.
Right.
So I have never been like opposed to cold weather. I always liked snow. But after having kids, I do not like the winter. It was incredibly hard. So we had just moved from California, and it was probably one of the worst winters I've ever seen in Omaha, Nebraska. There was snow probably 4 months out of the year, and I was literally stuck at home with a 2-year-old, a 1-year-old, and a like 3-month-old. And at the time, Ben was working at Shields, and he had really crazy hours. So he had to work every other weekend and a lot of like 12 to 9 shifts. So a lot of the time I was at home by myself with these little babies, and it was extremely draining, emotionally, physically, like everything was just draining. But we got through it, and actually our brother, who is a priest, Father Philip, he actually helped me a lot during that time. He gave me some really great advice, and he was just like, it can seem like you're hitting rock bottom, but when you hit rock bottom, there's nowhere else to go but up. And he told me that, if I try and do extra and try and be this super mom, like I am just going to exhaust myself. So he said, just do the little things the best you can. Just be their mom and do not try to do anything else. He's like, and it was actually Lent at the time. And he told me, he's like, don't give up coffee. Don't give up sugar. Like, you need that. Just give up those sacrifices that you have to do with your kids every day, because that is your Lent. That is your sacrifice. So that helped a lot, actually.
And that's especially hard when you have young kids who can't communicate with you, right? I mean, we have that right now with Sophia, and it's okay because I have Ina with me, my wife, and that's not as big of a problem because we can always talk. But I think that would be very hard to have 3 babies who depend on you and always need you and need all of these different things and are crawling and walking and eating and pooping and all of these different things, but they can't really communicate with you. And I think that must be very frustrating. I mean, 1 is very frustrating. 3 is hard to imagine.
Yeah, definitely a lot of just pacifying or trying to pacify. Yeah, one more. But no, it's definitely difficult. There are definitely good times and bad times, and winter is my hard time. So getting through winter is huge, just kind of hanging in there and, trying to find different things that we can do that, get us out of those ruts and everything. But yeah, also it's been getting better because Daria and Ella can definitely communicate with me like way better than before. So Daria has become a huge help. And I've always heard that the turning point with a big family is when your oldest is able to help with the younger kids. And Daria is very close. She helps me with, she gets me things and helps Claudia with, reaching things and opening things, and she can get dressed by herself. And that's actually huge. I'd say that's a pretty big turning point for me.
Well, I think it's a interesting microcosm. I think we can all look at that in any form of life. I think like Father Philip said too, that any point where you think you're at your lowest, then if you are, then there's only going up. I think that's a really obviously wise and an extremely simple thing. And I think anyone who's in any position, even if it seems the worst, even if it seems like you are in just this horrible place, you just got to fight through, right? And there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. And God obviously is that light. God is our hope. And we have to fight through that darkness sometimes. And it does get better. Like you said, I mean, you have 4 young kids, but kind of your light at the end of that tunnel is having the oldest to help. And then even if you have 10 kids, it actually gets easier. And I've talked to this with many big families before, that that you think, oh my gosh, 10 kids, how do you do it? But it's actually, like you say, after one or two of them can help take care of them, it actually gets easier. And I think that you'll find that, I'm sure, over the next years. I mean, now she can help Claudia stand, but eventually she's going to be helping do the dishes and whatnot.
Right. Yep. Hold the babies and all that. So that's a huge help. So really quick, I wanted to just share a quick story about like our move from California to Nebraska. So I just wanted to say that it was amazing how that all worked, because we wanted to get out of California because it was just kind of not a great place to raise our family. And my parents are out here, which I knew would be a huge help with, helping out with the kids and everything. So we started this St. Joseph novena, and we just told him that if he made it work for us, then we would do it, and we wanted to know God's will. But we just prayed this novena and kind of left it all in God's hands, and just asked him to help Ben find a job, help us find a house, just make the move go smoothly. And it was amazing, because we literally found a job within a week. We found a house that same week. Ben flew out here for an interview. He got the job straight off. We closed on our house that same week. And the move was extremely smooth, even though we had Daria and Ella, who were 2 and 1, and I was pregnant with Claudia, and I was about 8 months pregnant. So the whole move was pretty daunting, because, there was 2 toddlers and I was extremely pregnant. But I was blown away with how well it went, and how we could clearly see that this move was God's will for us, because it all fell together so well. And we have St. Joseph to thank for that. And we actually agreed with St. Joseph that we would name our firstborn son, we would have St. Joseph in the name. So our little boy, Quinn, he is named Quintus Joseph, because St. Joseph helped us so much with that move.
That's awesome. And it's an amazing thing that I think it's easy to forget that our prayers actually can be answered, right? I think we're so used to immediate response. We're so used to clicking on our phones and seeing, if I got an email or if I got a response to some question I asked. And I think we sometimes lose patience with God and with the saints and with people we ask things of. And I think it's also really important, like you said, that you put these things in God's hand, but you also tried. You also went out there and said, okay, we're going to look into this. We're going to look for work. We're going to look for a house. And if it's meant to be, if it's God's will, then it will happen. I think that's a really good, in my mind, that's how it has to work. You can't just say, okay, God, tell me what we should do. And then you just wait for someone to, write you with a job offer, right? I mean, you have to, when you're looking for God's will, you have to put, your fingers in a couple of different baskets and try to figure out, which one is going to work. But no, that is a really cool story. And I imagine from your perspective that the move probably went well because of your friends and family too. I would assume.
Yes. We had so much help. It was awesome. So Ben's dad and brothers all drove out. So they had the moving truck and an extra car, and they drove from California to Nebraska, which is something like 30 hours. It's a really long trip. And then my mom, I stayed with my family in Iowa while they were moving out. So she helped a lot. And I just had so much help with actually moving boxes, getting everything put up. And it was just amazing to have that. And I knew I had people to count on, which helped so much. And just with the whole daunting prospect of moving, it was just an amazing help to have everyone pitch in. It was awesome.
And since you guys kind of moved away from his family homestead and you were a bit out on your own, how was that as a family unit? Was that something that was it very difficult? Did it kind of help? I mean, or was it a mix of both?
I think a mix of both. We definitely miss his family, that's for sure. And he was working for his dad, which had definite benefits and some downsides. But I think as a family, we grew a lot after we moved here because we were way more independent. I mean, we had our own mortgage, obviously, and we had our own cell phone bill, and we had all of these things that were our own. And it took some getting used to. It was definitely harder. But I think we grew a lot that first year we lived out here just because we had each other, and we learned to depend a little less on family, which is good. I mean, I think you should always, be able to depend on family, but also being independent as your own family is really important.
Definitely. And yeah, being able to make your own decisions and move on with your lives the way you want to. And obviously having already taken the examples from your parents, hopefully, if they were good examples, and kind of, yeah, being your own little group. And that's, I mean, I guess that's one of your next things you've got coming up with your young kids is homeschooling. And I don't know what your plan is with that. I think since our family and Ben's family are both homeschooled, I assume you plan on homeschooling.
Yep, we are definitely going to start out homeschooling, and we're really lucky because we actually do have the Omaha school pretty close. So if we needed that, we could do that as well because it's a great Catholic school. But yeah, I want to start out homeschooling, and it's really neat because obviously being homeschooled myself and Ben's family being homeschooled, I have so many resources and so many people I can talk to about it. And I think that just like even instilling the love of learning in them is probably the most important thing you can do. And just being able to really be hands-on with that and just take the time one-on-one, and they can learn from their parents. I mean, I think that that's a pretty great thing to be able to do.
And I think that people would argue against homeschooling that the parents don't have the ability to teach kids at a certain level. I think that's one argument. I think the other one is that how do you stay on top of all of your kids' issues and their own individual issues if especially you have other babies and stuff to take care of? I mean, do you think that's going to be a problem, or how do you see it?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. It's kind of scary going into it because, yeah, it's definitely going to be difficult with, being pulled away from, doing homeschool because you got to feed a baby or change a diaper or anything like that. But I think it's really helpful to know that you can be very flexible, and that teaching and homeschooling doesn't have to be an 8 to 3 thing. It can literally be all day. Like, I'm actually not at the point where I'm teaching kindergarten yet. So Daria is in preschool, but we kind of try and learn throughout the day. So if we're going on a walk, I'll ask them, what letters are in the signs, and we'll point out numbers on mailboxes. And it's just, it's kind of neat that you can pull things from around you, and that can become their school. And obviously you need a curriculum once they get older. But I think also just having that mindset of it's not necessarily about what they learn. It's about how they learn it and how they grasp it and how they, love it. And it's less about, getting through books. It's more about setting them up for life, setting them up to succeed and to get to heaven.
Right. And that's totally right. And I think that a lot of these issues people have with homeschooling, I mean, I have similar issues with public schools and even private schools, that first of all, yeah, how much does a kid actually have to learn? The actual material, what actually is going to stay in their little heads or even in their grown heads? When you're in high school or college, what do you remember from high school? It's
Right.
actually not that much. Now, you learn basic skills. There's some things you do need to learn how to write and to add and, basic things that absolutely you need. But what actually stays, and I think that, like you say, the biggest thing is that, two biggest things. One is to learn how to learn. And then the second is to want to learn, right? And if you don't want to learn, it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter if you're homeschooled. It doesn't matter if you're in college. You're not going to learn anything. And so if you have that love of learning, then you can be anything. I think there's this real around the world, there's this bad image of homeschoolers. And I think it's sometimes earned. I think we've both known homeschooling groups that are not good. Either they're kind of their own little Amish clique, or they're they're really socially awkward, or they just don't care. Like their parents don't actually teach them and they just sit around and play video games or something. And so there are downsides to homeschooling. You have to take it extremely seriously, and you have to know that this is your kid's future in your hands. But we also know people who joined the Marines, people who are engineers. And I would say from my experience, most of the people I know as homeschoolers are just as well off, at least, as the people who went to public school.
Yes, definitely. And I think that you have the responsibility of teaching your kids, but you also have the chance to really know what they learn. I think a lot of times, and not always, but yeah, if your kids go to public school or even private school, you don't have that knowledge of exactly what their teacher is giving them. And I think kids, they're so extremely moldable, and they can just really soak in everything they hear. So you obviously want everything they hear to be positive and to be uplifting and to be correct. So I think that that's where homeschooling can be really good, is you have the opportunity of feeding your children exactly what they need.
Right. And I think from what I've seen from Catholic schools, they can be very, very good. You went to one, I went to one in Omaha. It was some of the best years of my life as a high schooler. I learned a lot. I made great friends. Two of the priests who've been on this podcast were good friends of mine in high school. And so obviously there are good things to come from it. But I think oftentimes what happens is that parents send their kids to Catholic schools and think the Catholic school will raise them and teach them everything they need to know. They'll teach them everything about faith and morals and just how to be good people. And obviously that's not the case. You parents, no matter where you send them to school, the parents have to be the primary teachers, especially in matters of faith and morals. I think that's really important for parents to remember, that you have to be the prime guide of your kids' lives. And eventually we will all be judged by God for how we did, for how well we raised our kids and if we took it seriously enough.
Right. Yes. And it's a huge undertaking, but I think it's definitely worth it. Speaking, for us as a family, my mom did it for how many years? 20 years. And, we went to Omaha school for the later years, some of us, but yeah, Father Philip is a priest, Paul was a Marine. You're obviously doing great. Like, all of us turned out exceedingly well. And I think that goes to show how if you do homeschooling right, it can be one of the best things. And yeah, I'm also totally not against, Catholic schools. They are great. But like you said, you have to make sure that the learning doesn't end when you come home from school, just like teaching your kids what they need and giving them life lessons and the things that they might not get at the Catholic school.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Good. Okay. So the last third of the podcast, I want to get your advice on a few things. So your advice for young mothers. There are plenty. I think there are young mothers listening to this podcast. I hope so. They've had to put through some of my Being Manly podcasts and whatnot, but I hope they're still here for this podcast with my sister Michelle, also known as Chicky, who I can't call you Michelle. I'm sorry, it's just strange for me. There's a little story I had to tell. I came to Omaha years ago, now probably 10 years ago, when you were still in high school, and I went to Bishop Pivarunas to ask him if I could bring you to lunch, I think. And I went up to the bishop and I said, Your Excellency, can I bring Chicky to lunch? And he just looks at me like I was insane. I'm like, can I bring Chicky to lunch, Your Excellency? He's like, who's Chicky? I was like, oh shoot, it's Michelle. So anyway, yeah. So I have to remind myself every now and then that your name is actually Michelle. But anyway, Chicky. So the first bit of advice that I think is a really important one that for young mothers and young parents in general out there is how do you, with 4 kids or 3 kids, 2 young kids, however many young kids you have, how do you make it so it's not just surviving as a parent? And I mean, like you said, sometimes you have to get that, like you talked about, through your dark phase. But when you're not in that, how do you do more than just survive? How do you make it fun?
So I think a huge thing is, first of all, putting God first. And I'm obviously not an expert. I have so many things to learn. And so, yeah, I'm not like trying to brag. I don't have everything right, that's for sure. But if I really, really try and put God first, put my husband second, and put my kids third, I think everything kind of falls into place after that. Yes. And no, I think one of the big things too, and I'm sure, moms hear this a lot, but just making sure that you take care of yourself. Because a lot of times as a mom with, a lot of kids, you can tend to just not pay attention to your simple needs. Yes, go ahead. And I think that once you truly take time for self-care, and that doesn't really mean that, you should go get a massage or go stay at a hotel, and those things are awesome as well. And sometimes that is what you need. But I think that taking time to care for your body, your mind, and your soul, I think that's so important. So making sure that you exercise, that you eat well, that you say your prayers, that you have a prayer life, and also that you are feeding your mind, because I think a lot of parenthood is just, mundane things, which is, it's how it is, and it's great, but it's a lot of dishes and laundry and changing diapers and a lot of that kind of mundane physical things. And I think you need to find an outlet for your mind. So for me, it's homeopathics. I absolutely love studying it. I enjoy it, and it's something that I can give to my family, but it's also an outlet for me, and I can just do it. I can spend my extra time on it and not feel guilty. And, for others, it can be anything else. It could be art, it could be writing, it could be music. But I think as a mom with a lot of kids, it's important for you to keep your identity and to have something to give other than like the mundane things. So I think that's important.
Nice. Yeah.
And then also, I think just literally keeping things fun, just doing stuff and going out. And I'm definitely a sanguine at heart, and I have never been like a routine, organized person. And I kind of carry that through to motherhood. I mean, I try to have like a prayer schedule and somewhat of a routine, but I am very I like being spontaneous. So if I'm bored, then we will just pick up and go to a park, or we'll go to my mom's house, or we'll go and visit a friend, or, we'll just keep it not I think sometimes when you think of being a mom, you just have this idea that you have to be at home and you have to do all your duties. And that's true. Having a good home is really important, but also getting out, having friends, having fun. I think for me, that is also my outlet. I just need that. I need that for myself. I need that to be happy.
And your kids probably need it too. And I mean, I think it's really important. I think we both would agree that okay, some screen time, with kids, watching movies or whatever, I think some is probably fine. But when they're only attached to it and that's all they do, and they never get outside and they never play, and all they do is stare at TVs and iPads and all these things all their lives. And you see it if you go out to a restaurant, you see these little kids who are got to be 4 years old or 5 years old, maybe on an iPad. It's just like, and that's really sad. And I think it's really bad for the development of the kid too. So I think that getting out, I think it's good for you, but I think it's also good for the kids. And I think that that's something that I see here in Germany. I think it's a little bit of a better, not everyone obviously, but it's a little better that they really get outdoors. And I think that's a really important advice for anybody. I think that it's so easy now with all of our technology to be so sucked into anything, if it's Twitter, Facebook, TV, whatever. I mean, it's just, there's endless ways to be just sit on your couch and not do anything. And it's so important to get outside. It's so important to breathe the air and to see the trees and really to appreciate God's creation, because I think that in itself can be a form of prayer, and it's a nice form of prayer. It's good for your body. It's good for your soul. It's good, for your brain. And I think that, I would totally agree with that one. That definitely get out and do something. Don't just sit at home and mope.
Right. Yes. And it's amazing what it can do. Even just an hour of going outside can change everyone's attitudes. It's amazing. I've seen it like all the time. I see it. It's just like everyone's grumpy and fighting and at each other's throats. And then we go outside and it's fine. They're just playing. And then, I mean, it always doesn't happen like that. Sometimes they fight and whine outside, but like it changes your attitude. And it was awesome. We got to start a garden when we first moved out here. So we've been doing that during the spring and summer. And that's also, it's so nice for the kids and for myself just to be out in God's good earth and just, be digging in the dirt. And I think it's just important for kids and for adults to just have that, just go outside and get off your butt and just, try and soak up nature.
And so in going back to something you said earlier, you said that one of your hobbies now is homeopathy. Is that something that, how does that change your view of health, I guess? I mean, I don't know how do you feel about sugar? This is something I want to do on a future show. I want to talk to a naturopath or some doctor, someone who studied this stuff about sugar and its effects on kids. I don't know. Do you allow all sugar, or how is that for you?
Oh, we definitely have sugar. But that being said, I really try and keep it, around the holidays or on birthdays, so we don't always have sugar lying around the house. And granted, over Christmas, I obviously baked and we obviously had candy and chocolate and everything, but also it's crazy how the kids change when they have had sugar. They are just whiny and they, I don't know, expect things. And I mean, every now and then I do not mind. I don't really want to be one of those parents who never lets their kids have sugar, because then, later down the road, they'll probably rebel and they'll probably eat all the things that I never let them. But at the same time, I think keeping a good diet, and not taking in sugar, 80% of the time, I think that that's kind of a good compromise. So let them have their sweets and have their candy on birthdays and holidays and Christmas, but not every day. Don't make it make it a special thing, not something that they think that they need or something. Not every day, I guess.
Right. And I guess like all things for parents or kids or anybody is moderation, right? And that's definitely
right.
Good. But like you said, I think it's so amazing to me how you see the change in kids when they have sugar. And I think that's so important to just know that, at least to know. It's you go around Christmas, and I remember when we were kids or our younger siblings were kids, and you get to be Christmas, and it was everyone was always miserable all the time. Everyone was fighting. Everyone was always in a bad mood. Everyone was just miserable. And it took me to be an adult to realize, like, oh, well, it was because that was really the only time we were allowed to eat sugar all the time. Because it was Christmas, and if that's the case, that's the case. That's fine. That's every parent's prerogative. They can decide, hey, do we want to give sugar or not? But just as long as people realize, like, hey, there might be a reason why your kids are misbehaving during certain times, because sugar has a very, very serious effect. And I think look at diets and stuff for adults too. I mean, I'm the same. I've got chocolates. I mean, I go to the store and I see 50% off deals for chocolate, and I buy a basket full because it's 50% off chocolate, for goodness sake. But it's still, it's kind of a thing that, it's hard to moderate, and but it's really important. I think that these things they're really drugs. I mean, like caffeine, sugar, it's a drug, and it really, really affects our bodies. And I think that I'm not talking to you. I'm just saying anyone. I think we really need to think more and more what we're putting into our bodies. I think that I'm sure that as well as anybody, especially if you're studying, these natural forms of health, that, boy, watch out what you put in your body.
Right. No, it's really important. And I think it just changes. It changes you, it changes when you're eating well. It changes how you think about, how you think about things and how you approach life almost. Like, I think in like the last couple weeks, we have been pretty awful. We have not been eating well. We haven't been outside as much, and we see that, and I'm like, we need to change. So yeah, we're definitely cutting back on sugar and getting outside more, and I already see good coming from it.
Yeah. I don't hear good coming from it. I don't.
Maybe not all of the people agree on this.
Right, with the lack of sugar. Yeah. Who is that? Is that Claudia?
Giving sugar in front of the TV. No, I'm just kidding.
It's a good excuse to be on a show with Uncle Kevin, right?
Exactly.
Who's crying? Is that Claudia?
Yep, that's Claudia.
Claudia's the crazy one, huh?
Yep, she's my crazy little choleric child. So yeah, she keeps things interesting, that's for sure.
Nice. Well, Chicky, we're actually probably about the end of the show. What's your last word? What is a last word of departing for anyone out there? If it's about kids or about having a husband, how you take care of yourself. What's your last word?
So I would say that it's really important to encourage and support your husband, because obviously you want to be on the same team. He's your teammate. You should be on the same page with him, and trying to make it a regular thing to go on date nights, even though you have kids. Make the time for that. Make the time to talk. That has been something that we're working on, because sometimes you can go a couple days without talking just because you're so busy with, whatever, with taking care of kids and prepping meals and all that. So make sure and try and just literally talk to your husband. And also, I think it's important, and I mean, I think everyone listening to this would agree that trying to say your rosary as a family, which we are trying to do. We definitely don't make it happen every day, but we're definitely trying to make it happen at least a couple times a week. Praying your rosary as a family and being, united with that, and making sure that you try and say morning prayers and night prayers with your kids, and just instilling in them the love for your faith. Because I think, in the end of the day, that's the most important thing. You want your husband to get to heaven. You want your kids to get to heaven. And, anything in between is just, it doesn't matter as much. So I think if you make them feel special, feel loved, and, learn to love God. And part of that, or I think most of that, is learning to love God yourself and showing them by example. So make sure that you are on top of, your prayer life, spiritual reading, which I can definitely fall behind, and I am not perfect by any means, but I think all that matters too is the effort you put in, just putting in that extra effort to help your kids and your husband get to heaven, because in the end, that's all that counts.
Perfect. Thanks very much. Good way to wrap it up. We may talk to you again. I guess maybe when you have your fifth baby, we'll talk about how to deal with five young kids. But until then, thanks very much for being on, and God bless.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.